I would wake her up and she would answer the phone like, oh, it's 1:15. She didn't even know. It was like she was in a daze or something. I'm going to tell you, if you had a regular 9 to 5, they'd have been fired your ass. Okay? They make accommodations for celebrities. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't hear nobody out there. Hold it down. Hold it down.
Phyllis had always been candid, but she came into the spotlight with a man on her arm. Now separated, though not yet divorced, the Jet story for the first time saw Phyllis portrayed as lonely and desperate for love, an image that would only intensify as the years passed and find itself a recurring theme in both her interviews and song lyrics alike. I don't really want to say need because to me, an aggressive, liberated woman need sounds too pathetic, Phyllis said confidently before dropping the mask completely. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe need and want sometimes go together. Maybe I do need and want a man. Product manager Milton Allen explained the story's sad turn like this. We had to come up with some kind of angle for the story. Jet was resisting putting her on the cover. They didn't feel that Phyllis had the star power. So in addition to buying advertising and doing everything like that, we also had to create a story angle that was, from a publicist's standpoint, somewhat controversial. That was a publicist concoction, but that was a milestone. Phyllis's publicist, Sheila Eldridge, concurred. At that time, much more than now, Jet had to have that headline that would engage people. And I think the feeling was that Phyllis was not a household name. I think that was a way to get her in. And Phyllis, in her interviews, was talking about wanting a man. So we just kind of played into that. While the story's angle may have been a publicist's concoction, it unwittingly created a theme for Phyllis's interviews that would stay with her till the end. Phyllis had learned to advertise her loneliness and her pain, which was not conditional on whether she was seeing someone or how much free time she had on her hands. For in truth, doing 8 shows 6 days a week left Phyllis with little time for a social life. Yet still, she managed to squeeze one in, which largely consisted of late-night parties, often including the usage of booger sugar with members of the cast of Sophisticated Ladies. Not surprised. Them gypsies be getting down with the business. The gypsies are the children of the theater. She was accompanied to these by a variety of men, including for a time model Danny Poole. But even with a man on her arm in the middle of a crowded room, Phyllis could still be lonely, and often she was. That's her depression kicking back in. What are you doing, baby? Sit down. Phyllis's castmates knew of her loneliness even before the Jet cover story appeared on newsstands. They, like Milton Allen, had seen how her substance abuse and irresponsibility was jeopardizing her career. She was an addictive personality, said Terry Klausner. You worried for her and you wondered, is she going to show up on time today? Is she going to make it to the show? There were times when she would fall asleep during the show. Damn, remember when she said that earlier? I was like, fall asleep. There were times when she would fall asleep during the show. We'd hear her running down the stairs because she missed a cue or something. And it was like, oh God, Phyllis. If everyone saw Phyllis's stumbles, no one was more acutely aware of them than stage manager Ken Hansen. He tried whenever possible to cover for her, but she didn't make the job easy. She would miss performances. She'd be late for work a lot, and she lived right around the corner from the theater. The Wednesday and Saturday matinees were most challenging for Phyllis. She would go home after a show, and some of the people connected with the show would be there, and she'd be up doing drugs all night. She would not even fall asleep until 6 o'clock in the morning, and the shows start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. On those days that Phyllis couldn't get out of bed, her understudy, Anita Moore, would go on in her place. The problem is the people are paying to see Phyllis Hyman, okay? It would be so messed up that they would have to wait to the absolute last minute to tell the people that Phyllis Hyman wasn't here, because people paid their money to hear and see Phyllis Hyman, big ass. What you mean? Phyllis ain't singing today. What you mean? I paid for Phyllis? On those days that Phyllis couldn't get out of bed, her understudy, Anita Moore, would go on in her place. Moore had joined the Duke Ellington Orchestra in 1972, 2 years before Duke's death, and remained a member of the group as Sophisticated Ladies opened. But the crowd was coming to see Phyllis. We would wait till the last possible moment to make Anita go on. It got so bad that I would call Phyllis. I would wake her up and she would answer the phone like, oh shiz, it's 1:15. She didn't even know. It was like she was in a daze or something. I'ma tell you, if you had a regular 9 to 5, they'd have been fired your ass. Okay? They make accommodations for celebrities. That's all I'm going to say. Often, once out of her apartment building, Phyllis was unable to catch a cab quickly enough and would just take off running. I can remember going to the corner and keeping an eye out for her, said Hansen. I would scream to them, she's coming, and they would wait, which is unheard of. If you're not there 30 minutes ahead of time, you're legally not supposed to go on. Hansen vividly recalls one of Phyllis's most outrageous stunts, which happened approximately 18 months into the show's run. Phyllis had a long break between numbers in the show. After singing A-Train in the middle of Act 1, she didn't come back until Sentimental Mood, which was at the start of Act 2. On this particular day, Phyllis went upstairs to her dressing room and dozed off. As Act 2 started, following the intermission, the orchestra kicked it off with their opening number. Then it was Phyllis's turn. But Phyllis was missing in action. They were playing the intro. The band had finished their big number, and Phyllis was not there. They were vamping and vamping. I can remember getting on the microphone and screaming at the top of my lungs, Phyllis! Phyllis didn't know where she was. The audience is waiting. The piano is just playing. 30 seconds have gone by, nearly a minute. The stage managers made the decision to go on without her and caught Judith Jameson coming out of the dressing room in time to be shoved on stage to start her number, which normally followed Phyllis's. By this time, someone had woken Phyllis. She ran down the stairs from her dressing room and rushed to the side of the stage where she found Judith well into her number. Shrugging her shoulders, Phyllis turned around and headed back upstairs to change for her next song. It was against rules, Hansen continued. She was chastised for it, but everyone knew Phyllis, and they knew why she had missed the number. She wasn't going to be fired for it. She was there that night, and she did the whole show. There was nothing wrong with her voice. She was just drugged out from the night before and had fallen asleep in the middle of the performance. You fall asleep at your 9 to 5, you get fired. That's all I got to say about that. When Phyllis made the decision to call it quits with Larry, she lost a husband and a manager. Charles Ward, Phyllis's attorney, had attempted to fill the gap long distance from San Francisco. But by early 1982, Phyllis decided she needed someone more hands-on. The label had just released the third single from Can't We Fall in Love Again, You Sure Look Good to Me. But it spent a mere 3 weeks on the charts, climbing no further than number 76. Her distrust for Arse, and more precisely Clive Davis, was in full bloom, and she wanted someone local, someone savvy. Phyllis approached her old friend Sid Mara, the man who had first signed her to his label and then graciously released her to Buddha, and asked him to take over the reins of her career. She said, "Could you handle me for a while?" Mara, who had managed acts such as Donovan in the 60s, recalled. "I said, 'Come on, Phyllis, you're a pain in the ass. You know that.' But eventually I caved in. She was a handful, and I did the best I could do." The powers that be at Arse were initially quite pleased with the change in management, something they had been advocating for years. It helped the working relationship, said Milton Allen. Sid could communicate better with us than Charles could. Charles was more of an outsider, an agitator, and Sid was your consummate insider. He was charming. He was well known. He was a New Yorker, that sort of thing. For the most part, Phyllis's career was on autopilot as long as she remained in Sophisticated Ladies, which was growing old to her by 1982. The show wasn't doing for her what she had intended, giving her the visibility in the areas that she had hoped for. And Arse was pitting her up against Angela Bofill and people like that, explaining Mercedes Ellington. The industry does such strange things with people. Treating people as commodities never works. In June, 2 distinct events happened in Phyllis's career that clearly illustrated her internal struggles and the dueling personalities inside her. The first occurred on June 14th.
All the stars are born. Hey, hey, hey. Hollywood is world. Hollywood is world. I was one time married. Lovely wife and life, baby Carrie. No, all the stars are gone. The sands are gone. But it is in Hollywood.